LeBron James the greatest player ever?
Ever.
What about Michael and Kobe? So you just gonna pass Kobe up like that?
I'm gonna pass Kobe up. I'm gonna look at Michael.
Michael Jordan is what in the finals? 6 and what?
Oh.
And what is LeBron in the finals? That's all I gotta say.
Shaq has had enough of the ongoing disrespect toward Michael Jordan, and now he's calling out LeBron and Kevin Durant in a way that has the entire basketball world talking. The NBA GOAT debate has never really gone away, but when Shaquille O'Neal steps into that conversation, people stop and listen immediately. When asked whether LeBron passing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar on the all-time scoring list would make him the greatest player ever, Shaq didn't hesitate. He said Michael Jordan is the greatest, the only man who ever made him feel genuine fear on a basketball court. He described Jordan moving past him so fast during a game that it left him stunned in the moment. Everything you see on a poster, Jordan was doing it live, at full speed, in real competition. This isn't a hot take from someone chasing clicks online. This is Shaquille O'Neal, a four-time NBA champion, a basketball Hall of Famer, and one of the most physically dominant players the league has ever produced. And in his view, the debate about who owns basketball history isn't really a debate at all. What makes the GOAT conversation so compelling isn't just rings, statistics, or highlight reels. It comes down to respect, the kind that can only come from players who actually competed against these legends. That's exactly why Shaq's perspective carries so much weight. He faced Michael Jordan directly 21 times throughout his career, including high-stakes playoff matchups that became part of NBA history. Even in those games, Shaq was a force, averaging 25 points and 14 rebounds per game against Jordan. But despite that production, despite that size and power, Shaq openly admits Jordan operated on a completely different level of intimidation. Shaq has never been someone who softens his words to protect feelings. He says what he believes, regardless of whether fans push back or players take offense. So when the names Jordan, LeBron James, and Kevin Durant come up in the same breath, his answer is straightforward. Jordan stands alone. During a 2024 episode of The Big Podcast, Shaq made a statement that immediately rippled through the basketball world. His case for Jordan as the GOAT wasn't built around trophies, scoring milestones, or finals MVP hardware. It was built around something far more telling: fear. He said he'd heard players, including himself, admit they feared Michael Jordan. He had heard players from the next generation say they feared Kobe Bryant, but he had never heard anyone say they feared LeBron. That statement landed hard. Think about what it actually means. Shaquille O'Neal stood over 7 feet tall, weighed more than 300 pounds in his prime, and spent years physically overpowering anyone who stepped in front of him. And yet, he openly admitted Jordan made him uneasy on the court. Not just respect, not just competitive pressure, genuine fear. That kind of admission says more about Jordan's greatness than any collection of statistics ever could.
1993, still your rookie year. You guys are in Chicago playing the Bulls. It's a big moment. These are the defending champs, back-to-back champs.
If it can, puts it up and out, it needs foul. Like a quick turnaround.
One moment that never left Shaq's memory goes all the way back to his rookie season. On January 16, 1993, Michael Jordan dropped 64 points and added 5 steals in an absolutely stunning performance. Shaq was no slouch himself that night, finishing with 29 points and 24 rebounds as Orlando pulled off a wild 128-124 overtime victory. That game announced to the league what a young Shaq was capable of becoming, but it also served as a reminder of just how dangerous Jordan was on any given night, no matter who was standing across from him. Years later, watching The Last Dance documentary in 2020 only reinforced what Shaq already believed. During an appearance on the Dan Patrick Show, he made his position clear. Jordan would always be the GOAT in his eyes. He pointed to Jordan's perfect 6-0 finals record and the way he consistently delivered when everything was on the line. The numbers back that up loudly. Jordan won 10 scoring titles on his own. LeBron and Kevin Durant combined have 5. Jordan earned 9 all-defensive first-team selections throughout his career. LeBron and Durant together have matched 5, and Durant has never earned one at all. Those details carry real weight when the conversation is about all-time greatness. A 2024 survey of current NBA players showed 46% still pick Jordan as the GOAT, with LeBron close behind at 42%. Some fans read that as LeBron slowly closing the gap, but there's another layer to that story. The players who actually lived through Jordan's prime years are gradually retiring from the league. Younger stars never experienced Jordan scoring 63 points on Boston in the playoffs. They never watched him drain 6 three-pointers in a single finals half and casually shrug it off like it was routine. Most of them only know the highlight clips and the legend that's been built around him online. Shaq was there for all of it. The pressure, the mind games, the way Jordan shifted the entire atmosphere of a game before it even began. And no matter how loud the GOAT debate gets, Shaq is not going to let people rewrite what made Jordan different from every other player who ever stepped on a basketball court. When asked who he avoided trash-talking because it only made them play harder, Shaq didn't hesitate. His answer was Jordan. You simply didn't want to wake that up. Shaq has also been vocal for years about another issue with the GOAT debate, the way it skips over Kobe Bryant entirely. In his view, too many people jump straight from Jordan to LeBron without pausing to acknowledge what Kobe actually accomplished. But even when Shaq goes to bat for Kobe's legacy, he always arrives at the same conclusion. Jordan is at the top, and everyone else is competing for second place. And when Shaq breaks down greatness, he doesn't soften the edges. If he believes someone falls short in the GOAT conversation, he says it directly. That's exactly what happened when Kevin Durant's name came up. During a 2024 episode of the Big Podcast, Shaq shut down the idea that the GOAT race is anywhere close to being settled, and his main argument, once again, had nothing to do with rings, MVP trophies, or scoring averages. It came back to fear, the kind of psychological presence that changes an opponent's mindset before the opening tip. Shaq explained that certain players shift the entire energy of a building the moment they step onto the floor. Jordan had that. Kobe had it too. But when it came to LeBron, Shaq said he never heard players talk about fearing him the way they feared those two. That comment alone sent social media into a frenzy. Now, Shaq is not dismissing Durant's talent. He has ranked him among the greatest scorers the game has ever seen, and rightfully so. Durant has 2 championships, 2 finals MVPs, and an offensive skill set that becomes nearly impossible to contain when he finds his rhythm. But for Shaq, statistics alone don't automatically earn someone a seat at the GOAT table. In multiple conversations throughout 2025, Shaq doubled down on that stance. He stated clearly that only Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and LeBron James belong in the real GOAT discussion. Durant's name was left out entirely, despite everything he has achieved. That omission turned heads quickly. And once you hear Shaq's full reasoning, it starts to make sense. For him, true greatness goes beyond what shows up in a box score. It's about leadership under pressure, sacrifice, and building something that endures.
Players better now.
I'm gonna say one thing to you, and Max. I don't know the numbers like you do. Michael Jordan is what in the finals? 6 and what?
Oh.
And what is LeBron in the finals? That's all I gotta say.
Shaq believes true legends build dynasties from the ground up, rather than stepping into one that's already been constructed. That's the core reason Durant's 2016 move to Golden State continues to shadow his legacy whenever these conversations come up. On first take, Shaq's approach was refreshingly direct. While analysts spent hours debating advanced metrics and efficiency numbers, Shaq stripped it all down to one question. What did you actually accomplish when it mattered most? Jordan went a perfect 6-0 in the NBA Finals. LeBron made the finals 10 times and finished 4-6. Durant went 2-1, but critics consistently attach an asterisk to those championships because of the historically loaded Warriors roster he chose to join. And in Shaq's view, that context is impossible to ignore. Some fans push back on that criticism. They argue Durant faced enormous personal pressure in making that decision, and that joining Golden State simply gave him the best realistic path to winning titles. Others make the case that LeBron himself might have collected more championships if those stacked Warriors teams had never been assembled. But Shaq frames the situation entirely differently. To him, Durant made a choice that permanently altered how the basketball world would evaluate his career. Rather than constructing his own path to the top, he joined the team that was already standing there. For someone like Shaq, who places enormous value on struggle, individual leadership, and proving yourself when the stakes are highest, that decision carries real consequences in any serious GOAT discussion. Even Durant himself has occasionally stepped back from placing his name directly beside Jordan and LeBron in those comparisons. He's acknowledged both players as generational talents who took entirely different roads to greatness. Many believe Durant already understands, on some level, that his championships will always be viewed through the lens of that 2016 decision. What makes everything even more striking is that Shaq later opened the GOAT conversation to include Stephen Curry. In 2025, Shaq said Curry deserves to stand alongside Jordan, LeBron, and Kobe based on how he completely reshaped modern basketball through his shooting and his broader influence on the way the game is played today. And that's where the irony becomes impossible to overlook. Shaq is willing to bring Curry into the GOAT discussion, the very player Durant joined forces with, while continuing to leave Durant out entirely. It's a sharp opinion, but Shaq has never wavered from it. He reserves his highest respect for players who battled through adversity and carved out their own legacy, rather than aligning themselves with the competition they couldn't overcome. By Shaq's standard, Kevin Durant simply doesn't make the final cut. And here's what makes that argument even more interesting. Some of the strongest evidence supporting Shaq's position doesn't actually come from Shaq at all. It comes from LeBron James himself, the one player most people place directly across from Michael Jordan in the ultimate battle for basketball's top spot.
Because of Mike, I did pretty much everything that MJ did when I was a kid. I shot fadeaways before I should have. I wore a leg sleeve on my leg and folded it down so you saw the red part. I wore black and red shoes with white socks. But I did everything Mike did, man. I wanted to be Mike.
Over the years, LeBron has spoken openly about how deeply he admired Michael Jordan growing up. But this went far beyond a young kid watching highlights and cheering from the couch. LeBron studied Jordan with an almost obsessive level of focus. He replicated the shoes, the footwork, the fadeaway, the style, and even the competitive mindset Jordan was known for carrying into every single game. Jordan wasn't just a superstar to LeBron. He was the blueprint, the standard everything else got measured against. That's a significant reason why so many former players still lean toward Jordan in this debate. When the athlete most frequently compared to Jordan openly admits he spent years trying to model his game after him, it reframes the entire conversation. It stops feeling like a rivalry between equals and starts sounding more like one generation pursuing a standard set by another. Add Shaq's fear factor argument on top of that, and the picture becomes even harder to dismiss. Shaq has said repeatedly that Jordan created a level of psychological pressure very few athletes in the history of sports have ever matched. Opponents walked into arenas already mentally unsettled before the opening tip. That kind of dominance, according to Shaq, is what ultimately separates Jordan from nearly everyone else who ever played the game. Meanwhile, Durant's championships continue to generate debate because of the choice he made to join a Warriors team that had just won 73 games. Fair or not, many fans still attach an asterisk to those titles because Golden State was already considered a dynasty before Durant ever arrived. And for Shaq, those kinds of decisions factor heavily into any serious conversation about basketball immortality. The GOAT debate itself will probably never reach a clean ending. Every generation defends the players they grew up watching. Fans pull out scoring titles, finals records, highlight reels to support whoever they believe deserves the crown. Social media ensures the argument reignites almost every week. But when Shaquille O'Neal weighs in, his perspective carries a different kind of authority because he was actually there. He shared the court with Jordan. He felt the intensity up close, experienced the trash talk, and understood the fear Jordan manufactured throughout the entire league. That's why people still pay attention when Shaq says Michael Jordan will always be the greatest player who ever lived. What makes Shaq's position even more compelling is that he never really campaigns for himself in this conversation. And that says something, because his own resume is extraordinary. Shaq won 3 consecutive Finals MVP awards, matching one of Jordan's most celebrated achievements. He led the league in field goal percentage 10 times. Defenders literally couldn't move him, and opposing coaches were eventually forced to design an entirely new intentional fouling strategy known as Hack-a-Shaq, just to keep him from dominating games. Entire rosters had to be restructured around the problem of stopping him. Yet, despite all of that, Shaq doesn't push his own name to the top of the list the way many retired stars do. Some fans have suggested Shaq could have reached an even greater level if he had stayed more disciplined throughout his career, and Shaq has acknowledged as much himself with his characteristic humor. There may be some truth in that, but the more revealing point is this. Even holding himself to that honest standard, Shaq still places Jordan in a completely separate category above everyone else, including himself. For Shaq, the GOAT conversation isn't settled by raw talent or physical ability alone. Durant possesses one of the most elite scoring gifts the sport has ever seen. LeBron has displayed remarkable longevity and versatility across more than 2 decades. Shaq himself may have been the most physically unstoppable force the game has ever produced. But in his view, the GOAT title demands something beyond all of that. It requires building a championship culture from scratch, leading under the weight of enormous expectations, and becoming the undisputed face of a dynasty without shortcuts. That, to Shaq, is what places Michael Jordan in a class of his own. The generational divide only amplifies the noise around this debate. Younger fans gravitate toward LeBron because they watched him dominate for nearly 2 decades in real time. Others point to Durant's effortless scoring and impossible shot-making as something truly historic. But the players who actually competed during the Jordan era carry a memory that statistics can't fully capture. The feeling inside an arena when number 23 had the ball with the game hanging in the balance. Those players understand something that goes deeper than back scores and highlight reels. They understand fear. They know what it felt like to stand across from a competitor so ruthless and so completely locked in that simply outscoring you wasn't the goal. Jordan wanted to dismantle opponents mentally before the final buzzer ever sounded. That's exactly why one of the most telling moments in this entire GOAT discussion didn't come from Shaq at all. It came directly from LeBron James. Back in 2013, LeBron openly admitted that one of his greatest personal challenges was managing the fear of failure. While drawing a comparison to Jordan, he said the greatest thing about Jordan was that he was never afraid to fail. That statement carried enormous weight. The player most consistently placed beside Jordan in the GOAT conversation was essentially acknowledging that Jordan operated with a mental edge that stood above everyone else. When you pair that admission with everything Shaq has said over the years, the full picture becomes very hard to argue against. Shaq witnessed it directly, LeBron acknowledged it himself, and for a large portion of the basketball world, that combination settles the conversation. Michael Jordan stands alone at the top. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share it with any basketball fan who loves getting into the GOAT debate. Drop your thoughts in the comments too. Is MJ still number 1, or do you think someone else deserves that spot? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.